Call this meeting to order. Mary, read the roll.
Rumble.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Ferris. And Garcia.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all those who are present, who are joining us by social media. I'd like to welcome County Commissioner Larry Infield on the discussion regarding the special question on the election coming up, and I believe that the city manager has prepared a PowerPoint presentation. And Larry, anytime that you want to speak, just, and I can, before Ken, if you want to say something, just let me know.
Well,
Okay.
I just want to be real clear.
Okay.
I'm just here to transfer tonight because without the other two here, it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. As an individual. But I mean, any thoughts that you might have, or anything that you want to expound, you're more than welcome.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to
turn the meeting over to our new city manager. Ken, welcome to the first official city meeting. We're excited to have you. We know things will continue to go with your background and experience. So I'm going to turn this first. I think that's for JD and this here. All right, you got the floor. Sure.
Sales tax. It started in around 82, maybe 83.
It was 1983.
Originally, because they needed to have legislation passed required to put on the county tax, and they couldn't have that election until 2006. So that was kind of the genesis of why the county commissioners came and asked the city, saying, could you put it on the ballot? The city passed a resolution on September 12th of that year, authorizing and providing for the calling of a special question election, imposing a 1% or a 1 penny sales tax for certain streets and roads in the city and in Sherman County. That's what the actual language was on that resolution. Then the county commissioners came to the city commission meeting on September 21st, and there was a question on the length of the 20-year bond issue, thinking it won't pass. So then they said, it kind of, what you could read between the lines is, can you take it off the city ballot? And so then the city at their next meeting rescinded resolution and then scrapped the ballot question. So they took it off the ballot for that one. So go to the next, you did already, Josh, thanks. On February 21st, 06, so this was in February after all that happened in August and September of the previous year. in February, the county commissioners came to the city commission meeting. Both boards agreed to simplify the language on the ballot, even though it was a county sales tax proposal. They also talked about the timing of it, and the timing needed to be at the end of March so it could have a full quarter before it was implemented on July 1st of that year. So that's why the election actually came the last week of March. But they discussed, well, and before they had talked about 20 years was too long. So then they're talking about this one. They need to simplify the language on the ballot, and the county commissioner also requested to publish a list of the road improvements, saying that would help the measure pass. The county passed county resolution on February 28th, a week later, authorizing and providing for the special question election on March 28th, and to impose a 1-cent sales tax to finance, and it's basically to finance the cost of certain streets and roadway improvements in Sherman County. The county resolution named improvements in the whereas, where at the beginning of the resolution they have all these whereases. It names those improvements in the whereases part of it, but the question that was put on the ballot itself did not list the improvements. It just was more generic. It was just a general question. Shall Sherman County be allowed to impose the 1-cent sales tax? So that's all that appeared on the ballot. They didn't list the specific improvements. And the sales tax was to start on July 1st until payment of all improvements. Go to the next one, Josh. Then, after the election, then they talked about entering into an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA. And City Ordinance 1566 approved that IGA in September. So they took from, the election was the last week of March, got all happy in April, and then they discussed it from April. I didn't read all of them, but from April to September, and they finally agreed on the intergovernmental agreement in September. And the IGA listed projects, and it's split between city and county projects. And it lists in that IGA how the county is authorized to impose that 1-cent sales tax under KSA 12-187, as amended by the House bill of that season of legislature, the 06 legislature. 27, and it lists specifically in the IGA that 27.77 of bond proceeds would be set for city projects, 72.23% of bond proceeds set for county projects. Both boards acknowledged that actual costs may vary from estimates, which you can have the best estimate on the road, but if it's a couple of years from now, who knows what concrete is or other things. The IGA was supposed to be in effect until bonds mature on January 1st, 25, or are paid in advance of the maturity. And I think that's what the county is looking at doing, is paying the remainder in advance of the maturity of those bonds.
0.3.
They're the expectation right now. Okay. And then what the project's spending was $12 million total in improvements. And as of 2011, which was basically the end of all the projects that were done under this bond, 3.45 million and change was spent on city projects. And as of 2011, 8.22 million was spent on county projects. So that was approximately that split of 27 versus 72. I didn't do the math to make absolutely sure it was to the penny, but it appeared to be about the right percentages. Or I didn't ask Mary that question. Now the current ballot proposal on the second penny sales tax, it says, shall Sherman County be authorized to levy a 1% sales tax, blah, blah, blah. It lists the improvements A through K. Specific county projects. What's interesting is it has no allowance for changes, additions, or deletions in the ballot proposal. There's no phrase in it that allows changes to those projects to occur. Whereas you say amongst other projects or including these projects or some sort of phrase, all it says is these projects and these projects alone. That's what the ballot proposal says. It's to commence upon expiration of the existing sales tax for similar purposes, which is expected to be July 1st, 23. The levy would expire 20 years after it commences upon payment of all costs of financing improvements. But it does not say or upon payment of all costs. I was just on the phone with the bond attorney, and to me, and I didn't ask him that specific question, but to me, the levy continues for 20 years, no matter how much it generates.
Right, there's no bond.
There's no bond. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
And the reason we thought to go that route, it costs a lot of money for a bond and interest. Why not just take the sales tax and spend every bit of it, keep the roads up instead of paying a bunch of interest for a bond?
Okay.
I'll give you just a little more history on that. I became a commissioner in 2010. In 2012, I was asking our clerk at the time why we were paying 4.3% interest on that bond when we had an A+ rating in the county. So in 2012, that bond was rewrote, and it went from 4.3 to 2%, which saved us about right at $1.5 million in interest alone.
Sure.
So, yeah, that bond was totally rewrote in 2012.
Yeah, refinancing will
It'll
often
save
save
you
you
money.
money.
Absolutely. Or that's the reason to do it. is it saves you money.
Right.
The projected annual revenues that's stated on the ballot question is 1.5 million, 1.530. And that's based on 2020 collections. If conditions were similar to the prior ballot question, then there would be another IGA. And I just say if conditions were similar. You know, over 400,000 would be for city projects and it would still generate 1.1 million for county. Go to the next slide. Josh. And this is the final slide. And we might have some other. You know, the ballot proposes a continuation of the 1% sales tax for road improvements. There is a change in who's the recipient. It is a continuation of 1%. I think that's one of the comments that I heard from commission members is, you know, the story that's been generated so far has been saying that it's a continuation of the 1% sales tax. It is a continuation, and it's for the same category of projects, but the recipients have changed. It seems to eliminate the opportunity for an IGA since the ballot question lists improvements A through K with no changes or deletions or additions. The projects listed do not seem to provide the same type of benefit for the city businesses and residents. That was agreed upon, and there was a lot of cooperation.
Let's stop right there for just a second on discussion.
Well, can I finish, Larry?
Sure, sure.
And please address the mayor if you can, since he's the one in charge of the meeting, not me.
Okay.
So, there seems to be a lot of cooperation and collaboration in order to get the original ballot question passed. And there was a lot of consternation, it seemed like, of how that would occur. And that's the only thing, when I look back on it, that jumps out at me, that there was a lot of discussion between the city commission and the county commissioners at the time. And that's the only thing I can do since I haven't been here very, 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 very short time. the only thing I can read from it. And I don't know what type of discussion has occurred already with this, but that's the only thing that I can see, and I'm just looking backwards, I'm not really looking at the current proposals. It just doesn't seem, that's all.
Okay.
And it seems to be a county tax for county projects, which, you know, that's what it is, and it's gonna benefit us, the county projects that are listed, and it's a definite need. It seems like it's a definite need for the county. It would be that. So, that's what the information that I found, and hopefully it clarifies some things for the city commission as far as how we got to the point that we're at now.
Any questions for Ken? No, we might have before we continue to move forward in the meeting. Ken, thank you very much. Go ahead. Was somebody going to ask a question?
No questions.
Thank you. Ken, thanks so much for the preparation and the PowerPoint that we've had. At the last meeting that we had, there was some remarks of concern that was made by the commission based on the lack of communications, and we can, somewhat allude to those remarks at a later time. But right now, I want to go ahead and give you the floor, Larry. You had some remarks that you wanted to make.
Well, so here, none of us were commissioners at the time this took place. So we have to do like what you're doing, look back to the minutes. So what we found was the interlocal agreement that specified the exact roads that were going to be done. And so we drove all of them and measured them, and the city was going to do approximately 2 miles of roads. The county was going to do 39 3/4 miles of roads. So if you divided that out, the city was not a very big portion of it. And so we had a hard time trying to understand, because as I understand it, the bond had to go for the specific things that were listed in this interlocal agreement. So we could not understand the $3.5 million going to the city for 2 miles of roads, and we had to do 40 miles of roads with $8 million. We never have been able to understand that. But in visiting with our county, well, he's not our county, he works for the county, the engineer, and looking at our highways and looking at the current costs, and it's hard to project, like you said, what's going to happen with costs. But we talked about this 1 cent. Last year it cost over $2 million for that little bit of overlay we did out here with the highways going to pieces. He said, if you manage very wisely and do your crack seal, your chip seal and everything, perhaps 1 cent over the next 20 years will maintain it. Maybe. Okay, so looking at this, we decided the city had very little there. 2 miles, we were trying to do 40. And it's not a city-county division there, because 8th Street, look out there on 8th Street, look at the $1 million homes that are out there. Look on 24, there's a multi-million-dollar new fertilizer plant going in. There's one east of town. Without those paved roads, those places wouldn't be there, and those paved roads all lead back into Goodland. So it's a part of economic development to maintain those. So there's 1 or 2 ways to maintain it. We can maintain it with the 1 cent sales tax and try to do our best, or we can go to the taxpayers and ask them for another bond issue, which will be larger than what the rest of them is of the school, and I don't think the people are going to go for that. So then when the highway's in disrepair, what do? And you all know, sitting here, you've lived here your whole life, if we have to tear those up, our community's going to die. We have to have those. We have to maintain those. And there's a lot more that we maintain than just those. Out here by the airport, basically just past the airport entrance, that around 27, that's the county's responsibility. Out here by the Paxton Addition on the north side, for a mile in there we do. We do about 3/4 out here by the Armstrong Addition. People say, why do you do that? Well, just like when you annex that in over there where all the new homes are. When you have paved streets, people build. It's part of economic development. So our thought was, the only way that we know how to maintain those paved roads, we have 43 miles now we've come up with that have to be maintained. And that 1 cent sales tax, and that's why we decided not to go for a bond issue. Because if you go for a bond, you're guessing, and then you're paying a lot of interest. Just like I said, we went to 2% and we saved a lot of interest right there. So this way, just take 2 or 3 years and then go do something and pay for it. You don't finance it. So we were trying to do the best we could for taxpayers, and we did not realize we were hurting your feelings when we're not trying to. We're just trying to do, just like you all sitting there, we're trying to do the best we can for the county and the community.
So the original city commissioners that were on, I was on that particular panel with Rick Billinger, myself, Dave Daniels, Josh Deckett, and Annette Fairbanks. When we opened up dialogue back in those days are actually, pretty clear as to the statements of how it happened. But the relationship with the county commissioners at that particular time, which was Mitch Tinney, Kevin Razier, and Chuck Thomas.
Right.
So it was very amicable. I mean, when they came to us, I mean, we were open to say, hey, whatever we need to do, in order to continue to move forward, as far as economic development is concerned, as well as keeping our city streets up, as well as, doing whatever we need to do. And there was a lot of development going on back then. I don't know whether you remember, that's when we were pulling, when we brought in that antenna company over here.
Yep.
And so there was some building going up there for, ADM that were working on the big plant and so forth. So economic development was really happening. I mean, it was kind of like, probably the last couple of years around here. So I guess, my position and my perspective, as I have been giving it some thought, is that I think that there's enough debate on both ends where economic development is concerned, and I think that each entity could hold its own. You could go, 75 to 80% of all businesses are in city limits, as well as, the constituency that votes. So if you don't get the support of the city, that tax, it's probably not going to pass.
Right.
Because that's where the majority is. That's not where I want to go. I think that what I'm looking for, and I wish that, we're going to have another meeting with the other county commissioners. It's a proven fact that, that this is we're at a crossroads right now because of the economic development that we have accomplished. And it's also a proven fact that before we continue to move Goodland, the municipality as well as the county, in the direction that we've been going for the last couple of years, is that these two entities it's not optional, they have to work together in order to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And the only way to do that is to find the barometer and the balance in which is justifiable, just as much equitable for the city as it is for the county, without splitting hairs. And I think that it can be accomplished. I think that I told the city manager the pinnacle of all political diplomacy is to be able to give and take, and we've accomplished a lot under those terms. And so I think that maybe I know that some of the commissioners have some thoughts, and I will give each of you an opportunity to allude to that. But I don't want to make it a session of pulling, tucking. I'm more focused. What can we do to bring both entities together, and then come up with a plan that is going to be beneficial, when the ballot goes back, because it's not, until 2023 when it commences, right?
Right.
And so I think we can get there, but it's going to take, some communications, and to bring a resolution to it. Now, with that being said, I'm just going to start over here with JD.
Can I ask you one
JD,
question before you start?
Yes, go ahead.
Did Andrew was your predecessor? Did
Sure.
Andrew? So he come to some of our meetings, and this conversation's been going for a while. Did he never come back with anything that we were having that conversation?
I think that there was, I've often said, and I don't know, I had this conversation with the county commissioners, that I feel is absolutely imperative that the commission meet at least once a month for a mere sake to find out what's going on in your court, and for you guys to know what's going on our court, and that never seemed to happen. It seemed like there was, we went really, really strong until the last year, and it seemed like communications just started kind of subsiding. And you're right, Andrew, because, Andrew left, when was it, in June or July? When Andrew, no, we brought,
He was here till October.
till October, okay. Yeah, and that's when he, that's right, that's when we brought Alan Lanning in. So, communications kind of broke off, no excuses, we always depend, we did tell Andrew, please attend the meetings, tell us what we need to do on our end, but, it just never happened.
Well, last year,
Excuse me, is that a yes or a no?
Huh?
Is that a yes or a no?
A yes or no for what?
For his question.
did
He
Andrew,
asked a simple yes or no question and you didn't answer it.
did Andrew ever talk to you guys about it?
I remember him having some dialogue.
We had open meetings about this.
Yeah.
When Annette was on,
Mhm.
over at the, we touched on things.
Yeah,
I don't ever remember him saying anything about it.
Okay. Well, last year, communication broke down everywhere because of that dumb COVID.
yeah.
I mean, we had a commissioner and I got it, everybody, it's just been a mess. So,
The dialogues that I remember regarding the sales taxes, in a couple of the meetings that we had last year between the city and the county,
It was
it was
brought
brought
up
up
kind of
kind
at
of
the
at
end of the meeting
as a talking point,
as
as
something
that we need to address in the near future.
It was
It was
never,
never
between
between
two entities, it was never actually discussed further than that, as long as I've been on the commission
anyway.
And after we kind of stopped having those meetings, I can't recall any information ever coming back to us in any way whatsoever regarding the sales tax from city manager and everybody else until, you guys
So-
passed here.
another question I've had is, like, looking at the interlocal agreement that we had, is how did the city do other things besides those 2 miles of streets? I mean, how could you spend, because this specifies exactly where the money's going. So I'm wondering, how is it you could take 3.5 million and do something besides those 2 miles of streets? Because, first of all, I can understand how 3.5 million needed to be spent on 2 miles of streets. So then, my question is, looking at this, so that's confused the county commission quite a bit. It's like, why did they get 3.5 million for 2 miles of streets when it says here, this is what's supposed to be spent on it? I mean, I don't understand that. Can you answer that?
I would say one thing, that a county mile, there's far less to do than a city mile because of the drainage and intersection concerns and those type of things. Now, does that qualify for the difference in price? I don't know. I haven't looked at it that closely. But I do know that a mile in the city it'll be often way more expensive than a mile out in the county.
Well, I can take you out if you ever want to see it. Like
Sure.
The first mile and a half starts out here with the fairgrounds and goes out the airport. There's no weird intersection, nothing. It's just a pavement, and if the bump's still there, it does not go to the bridge like this says. It quits a little ways past the airport entrance. So I guess I just don't know where that money went. How it was spent without following these regulations.
Well, I'm sure that, that we could go back and do some research, but I think, this is, what I mean. The verbiage specifically stated, it was an agreement made between the county and city commissioners. So, at, 27.77, I guess to me, it's irregardless where the money was spent, that was just an agreement that was actually made, just, like, you guys ended up with about, a little over $8 million to do, your county roads with this bond that we passed. But I think, that, one of the questions that was discussed here is that, every year we do our budget. And so, sometimes our budget runs 15, sometimes 14. This year was a little over 17 million. And so as I told the city manager, the city clerk and the city manager brings that budget to us. But at the end of the day, it is up to the city commissioners to appropriate where those monies are going to be spent. And so there's always, different areas. I mean, we can vouch for this. 10 years ago, it was costing us, we used to do our city streets every 3 years. Now we're down to what, every 10 years, Ken?
It's a little past 10 years, but it was also a different process at that time.
Yeah, and so you kind of, things start costing a little more. But I think the question that came to do is that, one of the questions that, from the research that I did, that Highway 24 was given back to the county in 1970 by the state. That's when it was the
It wasn't really given, it was forced.
well, it was forced on them. They said, we're going to give it back to you, we're no longer going to continue. So every year, you know what, why wasn't $50,000 or $75,000 when budget comes, to start building a project fund to resurface that from the county commissioners?
Don't know, I wasn't a county commissioner then, I can't.
But, I mean, even now,
50 years.
even, I'm not going back
Okay.
1970, because I wasn't a commissioner in 1970 either.
So when I was commissioner with Ken Clem and Steve Everett, we did that. We raised, put 300,000 on it, we figured that's gonna just help us. And I can tell you, when we did that, the courthouse filled with pissed off people, and we felt like we were tarred and feathered before that meeting was over, so we took it back out of our budget. Because people were madder than heck that we was gonna budget 300,000 a year to try to maintain Highway 24. We got crucified. I mean, ask either one of them, that was a horrible meeting. But we thought it was a smart idea. Let's put 300,000 a year, and so we plugged into our budget, and somebody read it, and it blowed up, got all over the internet, and my word, people were mad. How dare we try to levy for 300,000 to maintain that highway, so.
But it's an important piece of economic development.
I know, and there's.
And they still wouldn't understand that.
No, but they.
So was it mostly city people or was it county people?
It was a combination, and they both said, by golly, there's more people than the county people use the highway, sales tax the fairest way, and you need to maintain it with sales tax. So we withdrew that 300,000 back out of our budget, said, okay, people have spoken. Just kind of like if this room filled up with hateful people doing the same thing, you gotta work with the people. So.
All right, any other questions do you have any other questions there?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. So you're right, absolutely, that Andrew did bring back, and we, amongst the commission, it was actually discussed here, which was back at the minutes, that we needed to find a way before the bond expired to see, how we were going to move forward in this 1%, but it just never got there. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you.
There's a little bit of discussion, there's a different commissioner, Topliff was on board then when we had the meeting with the Wolof and stuff, so there's been some change there, so. Are you okay with the proposal and all, or not the proposal, but the information about the proposal and all that information? Is it the numbers and everything?
Yeah.
So, and I need to, and I've talked to Larry about this privately too, correct my comments, and I tried best I can since the last commission meeting here to,
when I voiced them before I even made the last commission meeting, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of my information, because I was going off of what the best information I had was at the time, and I was saying splitting it. I was being told we were splitting it, and Sharice kind of corrected me a little less than split. Well, it turns out 27.77, I guess, is the number we'll go off of. So I was incorrect on my statements there. So I want to be clear on that. But as far as, and I think this is important because it's taken, this long since knowing that the tax was going to go up for proposal to vote to get the right information. Now, I think that's the biggest thing, is just to get the correct information out to the public so they can decide for themselves what they want to do. And I'm glad that we're doing that, and we have what else we can get this out, to the population and the public so they know when they're voting is the most important thing. The concerns I have, of course, are, it's kind of shifting without us being included, the city getting any revenue from the new proposal. If it goes through, it's going to shift a burden onto our budget moving forward. That's a pretty good burden that we won't see any revenue
from that side of it, and we've got, we've got to finish 8th Street coming the other way now. It's doing good going out west to the golf course and whatever, and I totally agree with all the projects that is proposed by the county. All of them need to be done. I don't disagree with that a bit. And a lot of the building out there is because those things are paved. We got a great golf course out there that generates a lot of traffic and revenue, and people want to be out there and starting to build, so no problems there. But 8th Street needs to be done inside the city limits now, and we actually held off on that because of it was up, if I'm not mistaken, and Andrew, I brought this up, when he was on board, that asking about that when it was due to be done, whether they're going to hold off after the vote went through on the nursing home, not to redo that until all the traffic and truck work went through, and put it off for another year. Am I correct on that?
I hadn't he had never really talked to me about that, but,
Okay.
I mean, a chip seal's not gonna fix that street.
Right,
That
yeah,
street needs,
it needs
that needs a project.
major
I mean,
work. So, it's been no secret of mine what I would, the first proposal that was passed, the 06, went from the railroad track, so, over on 17th around the Main Street, I believe, and that was all concrete. A little bit of concrete out in front of the county building on 8th Street was part of it, and then from 8th, Casey's out north. So that was our little bit of part of it. If we were to sit down before and redo the proposal, if this didn't go through, or even before it got presented, just looking at things, it would have been nice to finish Cherry Street, those little couple spots out in front of Dollar General, going the other way, and then knowing 8th Street is needing a whole redo, have that in Caldwell redone and just put into concrete like what they did with the last proposal in 06, and then you have your major streets in concrete, and they're going to last a long time. So, and I've mentioned that a couple years ago as far as when we've set, and this isn't the first, you probably, I don't know, the rest of you've heard it, but, and I've always liked the sales tax way of going about doing it. So we'd miss out on that, and be very expensive, probably difficult to do otherwise from this regular city budget. And we really need to know what's going to happen too, as far as the timing of this, with it being 2023, because you all be sitting down here, midpoint next year, figuring out budgets and where the money's going to go, and if you'll be counting on in the county too, where the money's going to be coming from to do a lot of these projects. But if it did get voted down and we're able to come back to the table and add a couple of those projects, then it would kind of redirect some of the regular budget funds for the roads to go to the other streets around town, knowing that this part, the main part, was going to get taken care of. So that's just my thinking, hindsight. If we could have redone it going forward, if it's voted down, that would be my interest in coming back to the table and maybe adding that to get the people in the city on board with it. And if that was our part, I think that'd be similar, close to similar to what we have now, and I'd be 100% on board with it all at that point. So, but I think people kind of needed to know an idea. Okay, what's the alternative if they aren't in favor of this? What are we thinking? Is there a proposal that we'd like to put forward? Instead of just being against something, this money's going to need to be used for roads, and they still might be short, even for the way they present it. They got predicament on their side too, so everyone's kind of in the same boat. I think if we both jump in together and are both rowing together, it always works a little bit better. But anyhow. The biggest thing is just to get the correct information out to the people, so I think we're doing that, and that's important.
I'll apologize to you and John talked to you some more, because I hadn't seen the 27% till later today on the ridiculous paper. We looked at the mile and divided it out. I think I told you, your side of it was like $500,000 in roads, divided the 2 miles, and that's kind of what I told you, because I hadn't seen that 27% yet. We just thought, based on the roads, all we did was take the roads and divide that out and kind of figured out what the city's portion was and what the county's portion was, and that was wrong. So that was a little misleading there.
Everyone's just trying to
But,
get information.
so how far does your, like out by Arby's, you've added 2% to build those roads? It's not 9, it's 11% out there. How far, does that go clear south to the new 24/7, or how far is that 2% sales tax?
It's going east, right beside.
The only businesses affected by that is Arby's and that hotel.
Okay.
And that tax will expire at the end of this year.
The CID there.
That's
That
the money.
CID.
The CID is what's.
And then there's 2 other CIDs that we have.
Right.
Okay, why was it, in visiting, I was asked that question today, does that include 24/7? I don't know.
24/7 is a total different CID, and
Yeah.
Holiday Inn Express is a
Totally
totally different
different, yeah.
CID.
Okay, well, I didn't know.
Totally different
Yeah.
I
projects.
did not have the answer,
No,
because I'm not a city commissioner, I said, call me a city.
Those are the
commissioner.
owners recoup.
Yeah, because they
their money.
expire, after so long.
Right, right.
So the 11% at Arby's, Subway, all of those, what does that take care of?
The
What
street.
does that money go to?
To the actual owners of those businesses, which give a certain amount, a length of time to captivate, to pay for those improvements on that street.
The owners.
On the street that goes in front of
No.
those businesses? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
They can recoup.
Mhm. So,
And when does that expire?
well, we just renewed,
The Arby's one expires, the
The
tax
end of
will,
this year?
the tax will no longer be in effect until December 31.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be in effect then, but January 1, it's no more. For that.
So then at that point, is the city responsible for that street out in front of those businesses?
well, we have to maintain it,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's within city
Yes.
limits, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So just food for thought, like I say, our engineer, he's, why don't you guys go for 1.50 cents? I said, we're not gonna ask to raise that sales tax that it already is. But if it doesn't pass, that's a discussion we may have to have. We may have to go to 1.25% or something, because we've got to figure out how to fund that.
What about the terms as far as the length?
You mean lengthen it out?
Yeah.
Problem, well, I guess my point, why lengthen it any farther? Because we're not going for a bond. We're just going for the sales tax to try to fix stuff. If it's a bond and you're borrowing $30 million, yeah, you can lengthen it out 30 years where we try to reduce the payment. But when you're just going for the actual money and not paying interest out for a bond, then the length doesn't matter.
The way you're doing this, it'll be a lot cheaper overall.
Well, yeah, because you're not spending the money on the bond. It's just all purely going right straight for the road.
You'll
Yeah,
spend
cash
it
is
as you
always
get
better.
it.
What's that, Gary?
You'll spend it as you get it. on
Exactly,
the roads.
exactly. Just like last year, we had to do this little project out here that was $2 million. We could come up with 1.2, and thank God for Senator Billinger. He was able to, for the first time ever in this side of the state, he got us a $750,000 grant, or we couldn't do it. And now we're trying to get bids to chip seal 8th Street and part of that, and as you well know, with oil prices where they're at, we can't even get a firm bid, so we're not sure
Mhm.
where that's gonna land. But it's gotta be done. If you don't crack seal and chip seal all the time, you know what happens. Then it goes pop, and then you got a real mess. So you have to stay on top of it all the time.
So, I had a question, so where did the projected, the 1.53 million come from? Because sales tax consistently run about 1.2.
I don't know. That's the first time I'd ever seen that. 'Cause last year, the sales tax here was 1.3.
Because, I look at the sales tax, revenues every month and so forth, and, 1.1, 1.2 is what 1 penny, raises a year. When I looked at this 1 point, so you don't know where it came from either, because, I
I'm guessing-
questioned that right
I'm
away.
guessing it's just a projection, because every year it's went up a little bit. And they're
20
thinking-
years, they're trying.
Of course,
I just thought they were trying to average out in 20 years, who knows what the
Yeah,
revenue's gonna be.
that's
So
just a guess, but we're not there. Like last year.
Yeah, we haven't been there.
1,364,000 was sales tax last year. So I don't think it's gonna be that this year, because, well, we know what's happening in the economy right now, sales are down.
Okay. Anything else, Jimmy?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I'd like to hear from.
Hold on, next, Aaron?
Yeah, I think JD spoke our concerns quite a bit. I feel like one of the things that took me aback, and I don't know if anybody else, I'll speak for myself, I feel like we all kind of felt like we were in a gentleman's agreement of last year, having group discussions about where we were gonna move forward together, with the sales tax. And then, we got quiet. I know a couple times throughout the year, we had asked to reach out to try to figure out, exactly when this one was gonna sunset, so that we knew how we need to start planning ahead of what we were gonna do with it, and then all of a sudden, you guys have your proposal, we weren't brought in with discussions, it just, I think it kind of hurt our pride a little bit, to be honest with you. I think that's part of it, we were just kind of blindsided, we thought we were working together, and all of a sudden we weren't. And then that leaves us with thoughts about, okay, so now we're gonna have all these, like I said, everything's getting more expensive, and you gotta cover your costs. So how are we gonna cover our costs for these? Are we gonna raise mill levies? We'll get all those angry taxpayers out that you're worried about coming after us now. We're gonna try to add another half cent. Well, I mean, you guys doing the 1 cent, smooth thinking, hoping, people keep it the same, people won't complain as much. But you try to add to it, and the complaints come out. So this basically leaves us in a situation where, regardless of what we have to do moving forward, if this passes, we're gonna get all the hate. And we have to deal with that. And we have to figure out with our budget how we're gonna pay for these projects. The budget that we keep pretty high and tight, We don't allow for a whole lot of extra money for expenditures. So I think, for me, that's kind of where I'm sitting right now is, if you guys need that money, I have no problems. I wish it would have been a conversation saying, hey, guys, this is where we are. We have this many expenses that we feel is coming up. We don't feel we can work together with this. And I think that would have changed this whole dynamic a lot compared to where we are right now, I think. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I do think it's important, like you just said, that people understand exactly what is happening here. It's not just the same 1 cent that's going to do the same thing it's been doing for the last 20 years. It's going to be something different. And we feel, that information is important to get out. And I think that's the bulk of what we're trying to do here, is make sure clarification is happening and people understand what they're voting on. So,
I don't think there was ever intent of the commission to blindside you.
and I don't know, that probably wasn't the intent, but that's how it feels, and that's how
Well,
it came about.
we've had discussions off and on, and you know how it goes, there's always a million things to discuss, and there's only so much time to discuss it.
Yeah, but this is kind of a big thing.
But the paper was there the day we made that decision, and it came up because our clerk said, if you guys are gonna put that on the ballot, I gotta know now. Because otherwise, we can't get it on the ballot, we're running out of time. And we need to kind of know, she said, budget-wise, if that's coming in, even though it sunsets in '23, if it's not gonna pass, we got some problems, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. So she said, even if it passes, it's not gonna change till '23, but she said, we got it. So we said, okay, let's put it on the ballot.
Because I was kind of wondering why this year is when it was on. Is that why, so that if it doesn't pass, you have another year to try to figure things out?
And I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna do.
It doesn't necessarily need to be in November of every year. Can we not have just a,
You can always have a special election.
so it could have been done in spring or whatever, like
The trouble with a special election is a lot of people don't understand a special election is still an election.
well, the nursing home was on a special election.
I know, I didn't have nothing to do with that.
Only 900 people voted.
I know.
Yeah.
A lot of
But-
times,
But it was an odd time, and so, but
my take is, if you really want something to pass, you do a special election, and you talk to the people you want to vote, and they go vote. I don't like doing that. That's how a lot of things get passed. This is my opinion, not the commission. I want it during a general election, so everybody in the county understands the general election they vote on, because I want to do what the people want to do. So that's why I don't like those general elections.
next November's too late for budgeting though, for, as far as the 2023 budget for us will be set. I don't know when you set your guys.
July,
Yeah, so in the same time frame. So that's the only difficulty there.
So just for clarification purposes, from what I understand from the two commissioners before we go to the others, is that you would be in favor of not voting in favor for the sales tax, and get out information to the city constituents and to everyone for that matter, why, and then open up dialogue again with the county commissioners, come to the table to rediscuss it and try to come to a point of where it's equitable for the city as well as for the county, and join in session to pass that for 2023 if we can get there.
I mean, I think kind of what, and I think this is what Judy's saying, I mean, if this is what the taxpayers want to do, great, and we'll figure out what we need to do. We just want to make sure that they know exactly what they're voting on. You know, if they know what they're voting on and they decide they don't want to pass it right now, then I think we're more than willing to come back to the table and discuss it and see if we can't find a way to work things out where people would be more willing to accept it and understand exactly where all this money's going. But I think our concern about Tuesday is that people understand what they're voting for, and people can make their own informed decisions with that.
Which is, that they understand what?
They understand that if they vote yes on this particular 1 cent sales tax, that all of that money will be going to county projects moving forward
And nothing to the
instead
city.
of both city and county projects.
That which is exactly what you said. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear, because I want, everybody to be educated. So, anything else, sir?
No.
All right.
I kind of agree with JD and Aaron both. I mean, it's a lack of communication on both entities. We should have had this more dialogue, but city manager change and everything, and it got dropped behind the 8 ball for us. But anyway, I think that there should have been something in there for the city where the old 1% sales tax, this is a continuation of it. So you would think being a continuation, it would be somewhere in the same realm that the city would have got part of it. I mean, like they've said, I mean, where are we gonna come up with the money to fix 8th Street eventually when it has to be done? And it's getting closer for us to have that done. And it's gonna be cut something else out of our budget to fund that. And, I mean, we're both at fault for our roads and stuff because we don't budget enough to set that back for those certain projects. And it's hard to convey that information to the city residents and the Sherman County residents that this money needs to be set here for the long term of every project. This even goes to the electrical department and the water department and our street department. We need to be setting money aside for all them projects because eventually they're going to need upgrades. My thought on it is we should have been included somewhere, and I agree with both of them and what they've said. It's frustrating that we're gonna have talks on this and it's gonna get a bunch of people from the city in here and it's gonna be, why do we need to raise the mill levy? Because we have to, because we've got to accompany these streets that need repairs or they're just gonna get worse and worse and worse.
Got it?
Well,
Gary?
one thing we gotta bear in mind, our bulk of the income in this county comes from the farming. So our roads out there have to be good. And just like the patches between here and Edson, when they were in that traffic over there from that wreck off the interstate, we could tell the damage immediately. So we got problems there. If we don't get the crops to town like we need to, that's going to affect everybody. And I got to work on our trucks too.
I mean, it's a
But
catch-22
It's a
for all
cat,
of it.
yeah, that's,
I mean, a lot of those trucks are going on.
we're all in the same boat. We got to have
City streets, not just county roads.
roads in the county, we got to have roads in the city.
I think a real conversation we'll have to have if this doesn't pass is possibly going for 1 to 1.25, 1.5%. Because just like the 1%, it's kind of like if you and I go outside, Gary, and you got your coat on, and I'm cold, you're not going to tear it in half and give me part of it because both of us going to look like idiots, and nothing's going to hurt. I mean, and that's the problem. I mean, if you tear it in half or tear something apart like that, and we don't have enough money anyhow, so I think we'll have to have that conversation about possibly going to 9.5 or 9.25% sales tax to make this all work.
I think what's important that people know, and that's why I've always loved the sales tax, and so wanted out there at the interstate to grow so much because, you know, all those travelers and everybody coming through town, they help subsidize our streets. But, you know, they're just going through the interstate, and so I like any tax, but I like that tax as far as the best, you know,
It's a
bang
fair,
for our
it's
buck.
a fair,
That's the fairest way.
So,
you know.
if it were to get raised like that, I think that educating the public so much and how important, I've told the story before, back in my hometown in York, Nebraska, when their interstate blew up, and they've got all kinds of sales tax revenue coming in from the interstate out there. The county and the city got together and in an agreement that they raised the sales tax with the understanding the county would lower the property taxes to get the benefit of having a higher sales tax out there at the interstate, so more people that aren't living in town help pay the bills in town. So that was an interesting way of going about it. But so it's you know, us having that interstate out there is a big deal, and you know, that's something to definitely consider if this doesn't pass.
I feel like a lot of people just don't understand tax, period. I was asked today, well, the farmers use that more than anybody else, why can't you just raise all tax on their land? Well, they're already carrying a big share of the burden here, and you don't get to pick and choose how we tax. I mean, if there's a, 2% tax rate, it's gonna go, everybody, your house, farm house, it's countywide. We can't pick and choose who we wanna tax. That don't work that way. So.
Well, and I think, sometimes we miss the boat. We want our valuations to be up because it shows productivity, in the county as well as the city. I think, that one of the culprits that we face, though, is that, you got a 9% sales tax, but the state takes 6.50, and leaves 2.5 for the city, the schools, the county, and the city. And so, as far as valuations is concerned, they've got a projection and they've got, an institute passed by the legislature that, if your house sells for $500,000, I'm going to get tagged if I'm, around close to that area, whether I like it or not, because just that's the way the law is set, right?
Yeah.
So, we have no choice. But getting back to this thing, I think time is of the essence here. So we've got, here it is, Monday, we've got a week to disseminate information to our constituency, how we want to move forward in this direction. My question to you is there a way that we can have another meeting with the other 2 county commissioners and explain to them what our concerns are? Because the way I'm reading the commission is that should we not come to an agreement, then the word on the street right now is that city people aren't going to vote for it if city constituents aren't going to benefit any, and we're looking at raising $24 million if it goes 20 years, and so that's of great concerns to the city constituents. And
Well,
so,
Friday we'll have a meeting, a regular county commission meeting. Friday, we will have a regular county commission meeting this Friday.
yeah, but that would be too late to disseminate information, from the city standpoint.
Okay? Well, what, do you have a suggestion?
Well, I don't know. Is there a way that you can visit with Ashley in the morning to contact the other 2, Steve and Rod, and then get together with Ken and see if we could meet maybe tomorrow or Wednesday would be the latest.
I can contact her and she can get ahold of them and see. I mean, I don't know what their schedule's like. Can't tell you.
I guess what exactly are you wanting to accomplish with another meeting?
Well, the other meeting he's here as a private individual, not as a county commissioner, because he can't speak for that. So I want to find out exactly what the other county commissioners are.
But nothing's gonna change.
But I mean-
Well, absolutely nothing will change. So then what the commission needs to do and Ken needs to do is what kind of information do we put out for our city people?
I think we just put out the facts of what it is
Yeah.
and let people decide what they want to do. That's
And
what we
then-
need to do.
So chances are that it won't pass, you know.
Could be, don't know.
It's up to the voters.
It's up to the voters,
That's
yeah.
up to the voters.
Mhm.
And back there, a lot of voters don't understand it anyhow. I got a call from a lady the other day, she was mad about her taxes. I said, did you vote for the school? Yeah, but that didn't raise my taxes. I said, well, guess what? Next year, you're gonna see another raise. Did you vote for the retirement committee? Well, yeah. I said, that's gonna be on your taxes next year, and you're not gonna like it then. She couldn't understand that when you vote for that stuff, it raises your taxes. And I've always said, we can do anything the taxpayers can afford. If they wanna vote something in, so be it. But they gotta understand, when they vote for that stuff, it raises your taxes. And I've told you all before, people go to the courthouse to pay their taxes. I don't care what you do, if you raise taxes, I will get the blame, because they're gonna go to the courthouse and pay them, they assume the damn county commissioners are the ones that raise them. That's
Oh,
just-
Larry, they think it's a city. Because they don't think they can come to the county.
Well, apparently, I don't know, that's just the calls I get, like, no, just like the 2% sales tax today. I don't know, call your city commissioner, that's not county. People seem to confuse that a lot, so,
They do.
anyhow.
Ken, any final thought?
No, I mean, the information that was presented tonight is really just background information. I think that's sufficient. There's really no recommendation. We didn't put on the agenda anything for an actual action by the commission, or a recommendation from the commission. It was just a discussion.
Mark, get the word out.
If you have any staff direction other than what was presented tonight, please let us know. But
What do you, what's the best, best way to get the word out, or, paper's not here, they can be contacted, I'm sure, but, any other avenues?
we can communicate through 3 or 4 different methods to at least get some information out. And we can put this information out. And at least they have the background information for it. And it's not saying, and I might change one little thing, saying that, those are valid county projects. Yes, they need to be done. That seems to what everybody's saying too. It's just that it's hard to do these projects. So, but I was starting to talk with staff today, but honestly, that was a very compressed time frame as far as what could be communication. We'll figure out 2 or 3 ways to try to communicate it tomorrow.
I told him to just do it in, my opinion is to do it just as concisely and to the point. People, aren't going to read all this.
If this is good for our.
Yeah, it's good for us, and I think it was be a good, I actually applaud Ken for that, but I just think that, whatever means, whether we use social media, newspaper, radio, we have to communicate the message to our people. Any other thoughts?
I don't think, just like what you presented, I don't know if the city's even aware we rewrote that thing in 2012 to reduce the interest rate. Do you remember that? I don't remember ever meeting with the city over that.
You did.
So-
You didn't, but we were aware that you did.
Okay. So, and, that was just to save money, And I can't speak for the other commissioners, I'm just speaking for myself. No way, shape, or form was our intent to try to cause hard feelings or cause a problem here. We don't do that. So, and anytime any of you want to come to our meeting, come on in. It's open doors. Usually we ask you to come up to the table and sit down and visit with us. It's pretty open, so.
I've been anyway. So, any other thoughts from the commission? All right. Well, Larry, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure.
I guess you have a meeting on Friday. I guess you can allude to some of the discussion with the other, county commissioners that took place here.
Well, there's a lot of talk about this, because I gotta leave from here and go to the Lions Club, because they've called, so you need to come and explain this. I mean, everybody, it seems like everybody's in an uproar over this, not understanding.
Meeting here.
Anyhow, I appreciate you guys' time, and hopefully gained a little bit of insight of what's going on.
Okay.
I really hope, we all have a hope, especially as we get kind of settled in with Kent and kind of get our feet under us again, to really start having our meetings together again on a more regular basis, I think. So I don't think we had any this year at all. I think that shows what happens when we don't communicate with each
Well,
other.
I've been through quite a few city councilors, and I think we must be pretty boring, because they usually come to the first meeting or two, and then we don't see them no more. I don't know quite. So if we're boring, please tell us, we'll try to liven it up a little bit for you.
Your meetings just make me glad I'm not in your shoes.
Well, I've been through quite a few county commissioners. I mean, I served with Cynthia and Max, and then Ken and Steve, and then Rod, and Steve again now. So I don't know. I'm getting a taste of it all.
I can attest to that. Okay, any further thoughts? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.